Hello and welcome to Two Drink Maximum, the podcast over two drinks and nothing more. I am Chase Baxter, your co-host.
And I am your other co-host, Shane Byerly.
We are very excited to have you here today. We have a special brunch edition of Two Drink Maximum going on today.
Brunch.
It is the early morning. It is, bright and early at almost noon time for us. But we've got it worked out. With us today is a very special guest, Uplevel coach and enchanting human being, Helen Lim. Welcome, Helen.
Welcome.
Hi, guys. Thanks for welcoming me.
Of course, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much for coming.
We're very excited for your drink of choice. As you know, the guest of each show gets to pick a drink for us to try. And today, Helen has made a wonderful selection. It is a very morning-friendly drink. So please, Helen, tell us why you chose your drink and what you like about it.
Okay, so this is a jasmine milk tea, which is a version of a boba tea. I didn't get the boba balls. I have grown out of the boba balls, but this drink has originally a big place in my heart because I grew up drinking boba teas over the weekend with my cousins because they would come over every weekend, and that was like the fun time for me to have my cousins over. Yeah. So then over the years, since junior high now was 25 years ago or something. My palate has changed completely. That's why I don't have the boba balls. It's only almond milk now. It's dairy creamer. And because I'm a pharmacist turned Uplevel coach, a lot of the health benefits and health consciousness is also
What are some health benefits of the jasmine tea?
So jasmine is a floral tea, and it's a green tea. So it has lighter caffeine. Drinking tea every day has natural antioxidants, and then I just prefer the more creamy taste that almond milk gives it. And this is a little light in sugar, so I don't even get like the full sugar. So I don't know how that tastes for you guys.
It tastes amazing so far. It is very sweet, as I mentioned before we started recording. The floral notes are really great. It is an incredibly refreshing drink, just like right out of the gate. So that's awesome. Shane and I have spiced ours up a little bit since this is Two Drink Maximum. We have gone ahead and added I have a shot of spiced rum in mine.
And I have a little bit of Malibu rum in mine. We're breaking the format of the show a little bit, but that is okay because we are excited to have an extra special guest today. So I've heard enough. This actually sounds fascinating. I haven't tried this yet, so I'm going to give mine a little sip.
Here comes a live tasting for Shane.
Yeah. Ooh, that's quite good.
Right?
That's quite good. I think I didn't mix mine enough, so all I got on that was like Malibu rum, but...
Still not bad.
Yeah, still not bad. Yeah, it tastes like college.
Familiar? We'll start with the familiar.
No, now that I'm getting a little bit more of that jasmine tea, that's nice. It's very subtle. And you're absolutely right. The almond milk is definitely creamier for sure. So that's delicious.
I'm very excited that it has health benefits because that's a nice bonus. So I have a question here to start off. How long have you been an Uplevel coach, and what made you move towards that as like a career choice?
I've been an Uplevel coach about 2 years now, I can say. And I made that career choice because working in pharmacy or even healthcare in general, American healthcare, it hurt me to see that people kind of stayed sick. And the fact that like actually giving them a pill is saying, rely on something from outside of yourself and take it so that you will feel better. Only feel better though. You're not healed, you're not well, you're not vibrant and healthy. And so I did a lot of work myself to look into ways that I could be healthy from the inside out. And so like there was a journey through yoga, through nutrition, and then when I found coaching about 2 years ago, it was around like your mindset and your emotions. And so now I just feel very strongly about helping anybody who feels stuck to find their strength from within so that they can make the changes they've always wanted.
That's really awesome. And so you enjoy most about just helping others. Like this is a very involved process, and you obviously are getting like intimately involved in people's lives. What about your personality makes you particularly gifted at helping others?
So I've always heard that it's because of the listening part. Like people just feel incredibly listened to. A number of times I've had people say, "Oh, I've never told anyone that," and so being able to like release that, because in essence, like whatever you haven't told anyone, you're kind of holding on to it in a way, and
it's like keeping a muscle flexed, right?
Yes. Oh, that's such a good analogy. Yeah, and because we're all social creatures, like that witnessing is such a big part of healing.
Yeah. I mean, that's fascinating. I mean, I'm sure you've heard the expression before that if you love your job, you've never worked a day in your life. And it sounds like if you're not there already, that you're obviously on the path to that. So that's great. It sounds like you've really kind of found a calling, and that that your work is giving you fulfillment as well. So that's got to be satisfying on a very personal level. That's really exciting.
It is.
So let me back up just a second. So I think myself included, there might be a number of listeners who are unfamiliar with the term the Uplevel coach. So walk me through, how would you best describe that to somebody, and who would be the type of people that would benefit from working with you?
Yeah, it is something that I am uniquely coining because I'm trained as a life coach and a health coach. So if that helps people kind of start on a path to understanding. The up-level part is because when we are ready for change in our lives, there needs to be a self-investment in it, right? Like an agency to be like, yes, I want this, and I'm going to be taking the steps to it. And then the coach, me, is there to guide you along, because I'm always going to hold the highest version of you, where you're, as we all know, we can get onto ourselves and like hold ourselves back as we are. That's why we're stuck. But the coach is there to remind you of like what you want, who you are in your greatest self.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fascinating. I mean, it sounds like, frankly, that's something that everybody could, use a little bit more of in their life. So your target audience is everyone.
Yeah, that's why my I help statement is kind of broad. It's just like, if you see yourself as somebody stuck and want to do it for yourself, let's work together.
Absolutely. Has there been any moment yet where you said you learn a lot with him? What's been the most like profound little insight you've had from working with individuals so far?
It's fun to know that like whoever you coach, you're also getting some of the coaching. I call it medicine back. So it's like I went from like distributing medications to actually being like a medicine person.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right.
And that's also because I've trained in shamanism recently. Yeah.
Wow.
But to answer your question, yeah. So when I'm in session, I can recognize through whatever I'm helping the client with, it's either something I can then have reflected back at me that I've healed, and that's why I can transmit such a growth for them, or there's like a sliver of what they've shared that I'm still healing, and I can look at it myself again too.
So is that one of your main tools of like literally just like looking inside yourself and being like, what is the process that I would go about, or how would I handle the situation? Like, is it purely intuitive for how you work with the individual, or are there other like processes and I'm losing the word, but like other theories and concepts of working with individuals and motivating them and driving them that you work with? Like, are there any favorites, or is it just you feel it like in the moment?
I have definitely moved from being like having a structured framework, because that's how coaching school teaches you. The teachers have created some frameworks, and I did stick to that for the beginning of my career. But now with the shamanic training, I have a much more trust in the divine and spirit, so it has become a lot more intuitive, and that's why I like customized packages, because on an exploratory call, I'll get a feel for the client, and like say their energy, or say their aura is one that has a slower pace, I'd probably offer like, okay, let's meet every month actually for your healings, rather than say every week with some coaching programs.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. That sounds like that makes the most sense to me. Everybody reacts a little bit differently, and the same structure that works for you might not work for me or for you. And yeah, so that's great that you're able to kind of custom tailor stuff, because that's really the real progress. Is learning how that person needs to progress and then working with that schedule. Now, I want to just touch back on that shamanic training. How does that work? Is that something you do online, or is that something that you physically need to be present for? Did you have to go somewhere specific for that, or?
Yes.
Where
did you find your shaman?
Yeah, my school offered it both. You could go to Chile and do a 1 month immersive, or 6 months online. Because what we're doing is energy healing. It's not necessarily, I guess, what most people might think of as shamanism is like lighting the candles with the
rituals.
Ceremonial rare.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, the rituals. So I opted for the 6 months. And so I learned everything over 6 months. And when I practiced, it was still all online. So this makes the COVID world of Zooms like, yeah, I do the healings over the internet. It's really cool because I don't know how much you guys have looked into the quantum or have leaned into the quantum. But yeah, the fact that it's all out there and we just tune in and download.
So what benefits does adding shamanism to your practice give to you as an up-level coach?
It allows a depth of healing trauma. So like maybe like some trauma informed. So rather than just maybe someone who is trying to survive, like there's a client who is wanting to change, the things in their subconscious, the things that they've grown up with, because they want to be this different person that they see themselves, but then maybe their background is holding them back. And so we can get into the ways that they were that no longer serve them and really let it go.
So what would a traditional 10 minutes trying to work through something like that start and look like? Like, say you've got someone sat down in a chair and they're trying to work through this thing. Like, how do you go about approaching that conversation and starting that process with them?
Yeah. So the person will share everything that is bothering them or whatever is holding them back. And then that is like them bringing the energy into the space. And so energy is tangible. So like when they're sharing and they're releasing, in a sense, like Shane, you mentioned the flexed muscle. It's like relaxing, and it's coming into the stuff that was in it, keeping it flexed is like coming into the space. And then I can feel that, and then I ask them to relax, and then it's kind of like, I guess it's kind of like alchemy, because I'm like moving the energy, either like pulling it and releasing it to the earth so that the earth can compost it, or there might be a candle and then giving it to the fire so the fire can burn it. But yeah, essentially I'm just manipulating that energy that comes into the room.
Do you feel physical sensations when you're working through that, or is purely just like unloading and offloading and others' emotions? Like how do you keep yourself safe from that? Because even like traditional therapists and other things like that, there's a lot of overlap of emotional, just all of that energy is like the best word, like that falls onto you. So like how do you make time for yourself and keep yourself separate from other people's issues and like be able to step away from those moments and be like, I'm still Helen and I'm still good? Like what? That's an important skill to have.
Yes, it is. Thank you for the question. Yeah. So nature, to get out in nature for sure, because nature is energy giving. So that's one way to take care. And then I'm big on meditation and breath work. And then is there another, and like thought work. So if there's any like circling thoughts that I can recognize that don't help me, or grounding my energy, those are all ways that I practice pretty often.
Do you have any mantras that you stick to?
They're Sanskrit though, so yeah.
Might not translate very well.
Yeah.
Do you know them in Sanskrit?
Yeah.
Would you speak one?
Sure. So
you don't have to translate it. I just want to hear what it sounds like.
So this one is from my course that I learned about compassion. So it's Om Reem Shreem Doom Durgaye Namaha.
Okay, and you just chant that?
Yeah,
Wow.
and so Sanskrit has a real like rhythmic feel. So, I touched the table.
Okay.
Sanskrit has a real rhythmic feel. So like when you say it like with deep intention and presence, like you can feel it, the reverberations in your body.
Yeah, I could imagine. So a lot of deep syllables there, a lot of, depending on the speed and the intensity in which you say it. Yeah, absolutely. It's again, you can feel like unflexing that muscle, I have to imagine. Yeah. I wanted to just circle back. I mean, I absolutely agree with you that getting out into nature is very much, it really does kind of have like a different, almost like a restorative quality to it. My wife and I, early in the year, we went up to San Francisco. We'd never been up there before. And we went to the Muir Woods. I don't know if you've ever been up there before, but my God, if you want to feel small, go up there. The Muir Woods there's two different types of forest in the San Francisco area. There's I forget what the name is, but the other one is the one that has those redwood trees that are so wide. There's actually one where they've cut a hole in it and you can drive a car through it or whatever.
The sequoias.
The sequoias, the giant sequoias.
Sequoias.
These, though, in the Muir Woods are the tallest living things on planet Earth.
Wow.
And they're trees that get to over 300 feet tall. And I've like, honestly, you feel so tiny, like standing next to one of those trees, but I've never experienced anything like this in the world. When you're there, because these trees are so big, the oxygen is so pure.
Oh, that's awesome.
That it almost feels like you're in like kind of like a, like an air vacuum or something. It was an indescribable feeling for sure. And it's like, obviously not every place feels like that, but I mean, just the kind of the restorative quality of just walking through that place for like an hour, it did really feel like, whatever dirt and grime you had on your kind of emotional collective, it just kind of washed away after walking through that forest. It was great.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That sounds like you should have sessions up there in the middle of all the trees.
Yeah, I would love that. I love trees. They're like the best grounding presence.
Yeah. Although it's not particularly easy to get to. You got to it's like an hour drive and you got to wind down all these steep, roads and stuff. So it's a bit of a, no pun intended, it's a bit of a hike to get there. But yeah, strong recommend if you're out there. But that's great that you've been there before as well. Are there any spots, kind of around us?
Oh, yeah.
We all live in the Los Angeles area. Are there any kind of local spots around here that you recommend as like
top 3 places for grounding in LA?
In LA, going to the beach, the water, the waves will definitely ground you. Joshua Tree, but that also requires driving.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful place to hike. So when you have a client, do you give them assignments? They have like homework, or like what's that interaction look like over the period of time? And like, what would you say is a traditional span of time that you work with somebody to like, do they achieve like truly healed ever? Or is it sort of a like lifelong process of training and coaching?
I think we're all healing over our lifetime, because once you've done one level of healing with something, then you're more resourced, and then other stuff will come up that you didn't realize you need healed, but it's because you needed to be more resourced before you could be healed. And then also change is like a spiral rather than we think like a cause and effect, because like you'll heal from something and then you'll go through life and blah, 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 but then you'll come back up again to it and you're just a little wiser. Mm-hmm. But yeah, some of mine, I'll work with people over like a 4-month span or something like that. I say that's maybe the average. Mm-hmm. After every session, people do walk away with like three or 4 things to work on. The last client I worked with this week, we had her do some more creative exploration, because that's kind of the route that she wants to show up in the world, and she's working more in corporate right now. Mm-hmm. So she needs to like make sure she's putting her energy towards a creative exploration so that there's more space for it to keep coming through in her life. And then I taught her like a way to ask her body for help and in her questions of yes or no questions. And so for her to practice that too with people.
What was that process?
Do you want to try it right now, Chase?
Yes.
Can you stand up?
Yeah.
I can stand up.
Oh yeah, because the mic can move.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me bring it up to me. Hold on.
A live in-studio demonstration like this.
If I can. I may have to bend over to it because I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
There we go. Standing, fully standing.
So the body is actually, like in our society, we live in our heads a lot. So, but if we look at our ratio, like our brain is a small part of our body makeup, right? Mm-hmm. So our body actually has a lot of ways to communicate with us, and intelligence as well. Mm-hmm. So what your body is going to probably do is react as I ask you the yes or no questions.
Oh, good.
So
what am I looking for or feeling for, I guess?
A swaying, either forward or back usually, and maybe sometimes it'll be side to side if it's an ambiguous answer. So we can do some confirmatory questions.
Just yes or no is what I'm giving you.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
This is a risky situation I've put myself in.
I will keep our listeners informed what your body's doing. If you turn purple suddenly, I will let everybody know.
I sprint out of the room.
That's magic. Okay, so
don't turn me purple, Helen.
We're just these are the safe questions so that we understand what your body's yeses and nos are. All right.
Let's see if I can do this. There we go.
Okay, so is your name Chase?
Yes.
Oh, you're not letting you're letting your body do it, so you get to be silent. And then
Shane will have to describe what's going on.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yes,
I'm about to have to be
this
silent.
Is perfect.
So this is great.
Yes. Okay, so are your nails painted?
Slight shoulder dip there.
Okay. Are you living in LA?
Slight dip forward there from Chase. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Are you wearing Under Armour?
Slight bounce up and down almost there.
Okay. Are you happy today?
A shoulder shrug there. It was a very tall vertical movement.
I don't know that I have. Shane, you can ask questions too. Maybe you know.
Anything you want, man.
Yeah, better. So
my body will answer.
Are you sorry?
My body is here for you.
Are you sorry for that thing you did to me in 7th grade? No, I'm kidding.
No. I will say I will apologize to you for a middle school action. I've known Shane for a very long time.
It's true.
And one time we were messing around in a building, or I was messing around in a building that we were not supposed to be in, and me and my friend sprinted away, and for some reason the person yelled, "What's your name?" And I said Shane Byerly. So someone has probably sought you out. How did I do? Did I pass?
It's not. I like how you're asking like a test, but it's
Did I make it?
It's a tool for you to allow your body's intelligence the stage, so to speak, rather than your head. If you ever feel, because a lot of us, like when we're making decisions and we're like indecisive, actually our body can probably tell us.
I can certainly feel that, and I can feel that I was having a very hard time not
Yeah. So
using
the
your-
more
using your
relaxed
head,
you
yeah.
are.
We're here
Yeah.
talking. We're here talking, and I wanted to speak.
Yeah.
So like every nod and bob is like me trying not to make a noise out loud, but I can absolutely understand like if you got someone involved in that process, and like sat there and worked with them for a little bit,
Yeah.
that they would have some interesting realizations as their body reacted to stuff that they weren't ready to do, or ready to address, I guess. And you
Yeah.
could probably get pretty in there and get somebody in a nice little zone for learning and growing. So that was very cool. Thank you for letting me do that.
Yeah. Thanks for volunteering.
Yeah. One thing that I suppose that would be interesting in your field of work is that, like everything else, the world kind of completely flipped upside down with COVID. Do you feel like some of the concerns or kind of issues that you dealt with most clients before COVID, there was probably a pattern of, I'm just going to guess, 3 or 4 things that were very common that people were worried about, they needed to work through. I have to imagine that in the middle of COVID or now after COVID, those 3 or 4 kind of top questions have absolutely changed in that point. What are kind of some of the changes that you now feel? What are people more concerned about now that COVID is still kind of a reality? Like how did that change for you?
Yeah. I think we touched upon it before, where people have done a lot more self-reflection now that COVID has been around as much as it has been around. So I have definitely coached more people on changing parts of their lives, whether it's getting more serious in a relationship, or changing from a job that they don't like, or changing or moving. So a lot of the bigger shifts, because people are now looking, I guess, able to look at their life a little more broadly, right? Like when you're able to zoom out, you can see more about what matters to you than when you're in the daily grind and you're like, oh, I just got to get through and work my 9 to 5.
Is that kind of something that you worked with a lot of clients, or continue to work with a lot of clients, in terms of making sure that they're not burning out, and that one aspect of their life is not burning the rest of them out?
Yeah.
Tell us, Helen, how do we not get burned out?
I love this question because I actually just switched my marketing from burnout to Uplevel. So I do have a lot to say about burnout. And then in the coaching world, we say, like, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So if you're burning out in work, you're probably burning out in other areas, and like it's more unconscious. But yeah, with burnout, it really is about, I suppose, saying no to things. Or you might be the person that needs to start saying yes to things, like maybe start saying yes to meditation, start saying yes to the grounding places that you need to go outside and be in. Because self-care has to be put into our days when we're spending our days only in one space. Like, you would need to recognize the difference between your workspace of your day and your you space in your day, and because then you get the work-life balance. Otherwise, it seems to like start to meld, and then people forget, like, oh, I'm still working, but my environment didn't change, so that's why it feels like I'm just working all the time.
Right.
And that was, you recently switched to work from home, and you, Shane, in your day job. Like, what did you notice right out of the gate when you transitioned from going into an office day to day to having to use your own personal space at home?
It absolutely, almost immediately, on the days that I do go into the office, it absolutely feels like there's a much clearer boundary, even just mentally, of like, when I'm here, like, in my office building, I'm working, and then the second I leave, it's done. I left it mentally there, right? Versus like when I'm working from home, like it can carry over, like I'll shut my computer down at the end of the day, but like I'm still thinking about like, oh yeah, I got to get back to that person via email or whatever. And it does just feel like it lingers a little bit more mentally, than when I'm at home, than when I'm at the office. I'm able to just more kind of mentally shut that down and go, yeah, tomorrow it'll be there tomorrow.
And then I'll spin that to Helen. How would you help him differentiate those things? Like, what would be your step one to, like, Shane cannot find work-life balance at the moment. Like,
right.
What is his step one for trying to solve that?
Okay, so tell me how you signify to yourself that it's the end of your workday.
Shutting my computer down, right? Is I will, when I'm done, I will shut my computer down, kind of, reshuffle and organize the papers on my desk and just kind of put it all away. And then once I kind of get up from my desk and, turn my computer off, that's it for me, Mentally, it might still linger a little bit, but that physical almost ritual of just kind of turning it off, getting everything kind of organized, and then put away. That's kind of the signifier of work is done for me,
Yeah. So you already recognize that you gave yourself the physical indicator, which is like if you had been in the office, you're like leaving the office. But so to have the mental shift, then almost, who do you want to be after work?
I just want to be, the husband to my wife. I just want to be, just a relaxed, kind of just present family member.
And I know your real answer is Batman, but we'll move on.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I can't say that in public, Chase. Would it blow my cover? Come on now.
Sorry.
I was halfway through my costume. Good Lord.
But that's the perfect archetype for you to put on then. Just if you give yourself like, it probably only takes a minute to just realize, I can physically see that I have closed my work and that I am like stepping around in my office. But then it's like, okay, work Shane is now done because he has left. And then it's like, okay, this is husband Shane. And,
right.
putting on that and then going about your day to your evening. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So realistically, like, putting on that different hat and like being conscious of that choice. Yeah. To do it. It's almost like that should be like a part of the checklist of the work shutdown. Is like, that's the last step is let's mentally switch those hats, and once that hat goes on, then, it's, work Shane is kind of done. Yeah. Do you feel, just kind of anecdotally, I do feel like a lot of couples that were working from home together,
Ooh, yeah.
well, no, I was going to say a lot of couples that were working from home together, it's like for the first time ever, they're realizing what their work version of their spouse is. And it's like my wife and I both have joked, like, if we actually interacted with work together, we probably would not get along. Like our work styles are so different that it's like, work Shane is probably not the same version.
I know work mode of me is not a fun person to be around. I'm very busy and very like on task and very focused, at least on set or something. So it's like, I'm not here to be chatty. I'm here to do work. And then once that's done, I will, whatever you like we can talk about anything. But right now this is work Chase. So let's focus on that. But yeah, that was probably a big challenge for couples to deal with that. Do you work with couples or pairs at all? Like, do people come in with a partner or somebody that they are intermingle with quite a bit that they need to solve some issues or figure some stuff out?
I have not.
No?
But
Would you?
But yeah, I'm interested in it because it's just an added relationship dynamic. I have a tool I use called Human Design. It's a blend of astrology, the I Ching, the gene keys.
Nice.
And so it tells like your aura type and how you work, kind of what your soul is here to do. So I have done readings for relationships on that end. It was a mom and daughter dynamic. So it was really neat to hear the mom understand like, okay, so your daughter's learning style is kind of like trial and error. And that's why you need to let her like pick things up, break things down. Like she is actually learning what it looks like to do trial and error. Whereas the mom had a more learning type that is like a genius, understanding the energetics of stuff. So she needed to like, separate her own learning style so that she could let her daughter like grow and evolve the way she needs to.
That's got to be rewarding too if you're able to actually kind of do that. That's interesting. I would, to Chase's point, like I would have to imagine that like there's so many practical applications for relationships that I was actually really shocked to hear that like more couples or two people in a relationship, whatever, whether that's friends or brothers or parents or whatever, that's not more common because I feel like there's a lot that can be learned with a mediator or a guide, right? Interesting.
I think everybody should have an Uplevel coach and a therapist and a good friend to have a conversation with because you figure out a lot about yourself by interacting with other people. Like you were saying, like it's part of your process of growing with the individual and getting them like emotionally regulating with them and getting them to open up and be authentic to you so like they can actually share things because that's a very hard thing to get real people to do in the world sometimes. Everyone's so used to operating with like a mask and like this version of me that it takes a lot of work and oftentimes outside pressure to get like turn that lens backwards on you so you can actually like grow from that. I have a question for you. What would be for someone trying to start a journey like this, what was the one bit of advice you would give them for going into this process to try and get the most out of it for themselves?
Oh, wow. That is such a good question. Yeah. To get the most out of it is to recognize that like you got to be okay being uncomfortable because the stuff that we don't look at is usually what makes us uncomfortable and that's why it hasn't been looked at or it's been ignored. So you got to because sometimes we don't want to feel things, and so that's uncomfortable. Or you don't want to admit a truth, and that's uncomfortable. Or you don't want to be told the truth, and that's uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Truth hurts. It can. I mean, it certainly can anyway.
So, I mean, truth is truth. I don't attach emotion to truth. Because it's just the truth. Like, it shouldn't. That's the best way to work through things, like hearing information and trying not to assign an emotion to it right out of the gate and letting yourself figure it out from there.
That is a very wise point of view. What do you think about the truth will set you free?
The truth will set you free. Yeah. Sometimes whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So that's an important, like, sometimes the truth is not what you want to hear.
Sure.
And sometimes you're challenged to grow and learn. And that's why Helen's here. And that is an excellent moment. It looks like we're wrapping up our first drink of the evening. So we're going to take wrapping up our first drink of the morning.
We've talked for 17
We've
hours.
talked an entire night. I'm obviously getting involved. I'm losing sense of time, having such a wonderful time. But let's get our second drinks queued up, and we will be right back. Thank you for joining us in part 1. If you would like to keep up with us online, you can follow us on Instagram at 2drinkmaximum. You can also always send us an email and start a conversation that way, 2drinkmaximum@gmail.com. And now, here's part 2.
And we're back. Thank you again for joining us. So breaking the format a little bit of today's show, we're actually doing 2 different drinks today. So Helen, please tell us, what are we drinking now?
Yes.
This is a matcha latte. And matcha is green tea that gets ground up. So it's like a fine powder. And so then all the benefits, those antioxidants, are just more readily available. And then it has a more, I would say, the tannins come out. So like the bitterness, earthiness flavor comes out. It's actually like pretty hard to mix. So that's why I like to buy a lot of my matcha lattes, but I have made matcha lattes at home. But yeah, what do you guys think?
It's delicious. Now
I think
Chase
it's amazing.
Chase and I put a little whiskey in ours, right, just to kind of keep
Yes.
up with kind of the tenets of the show. But I mean, obviously the whiskey disappears into it very quickly, which is a good thing and a dangerous thing.
Did you also put whiskey in yours?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I
Are
just
you
followed
not
your-
okay? For me, I have such a hard time saying things.
Matcha?
Matcha. Okay.
Yeah.
The matcha tea was already very delicious, but I've added whiskey to it, just like Shane here. And mine straight up tastes like a cinnamon roll. And it's really, really good.
Yeah.
And I am afraid at how good it is because I might be having whiskey every morning for the rest of my life.
This might be your go-to morning drink there. Yeah, fair enough. That's good.
This is the one that turns me into an old hobo,
Yeah.
just with big flagons of matcha and whiskey on the street.
You're like, hey, I'm healthy, and I still get to
Good.
feel loose.
The biff tannins are good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So, okay, I want to just talk just really briefly about, the life coaching industry is kind of a nebulous, it's a very kind of wide ranging kind of spectrum. And obviously, let's face kind of like one unfortunate truth is because there's not a ton of official certifications, there's probably people out there who are kind of unqualified to do it. What is your advice if someone who is listening to it in a different part of the country is looking to get in with life coaching or any of the subsects of that? What are kind of things that you would recommend? Like, these are kind of what you want to look for. You want to look for a person who kind of fits these tenets, right? Because not to say that there's, a bunch of people who are trying to take advantage, but there are obviously people who are just more qualified than others. And so what should people be looking out for with that so that they get the coach that matches what they actually need?
Yeah. How do you know you got a good coach? This is a similar thing people go through when they're selecting therapists and things like that. Like,
Yeah, I know lots of people who go through this, and the expectation to set first for yourself is that it's like dating. Actually, you have to go and meet and interact with a few before you find the one who like fits you and the one that you want to work with over an extended period of time. And sometimes we want that like first meet to be exactly it, but it takes time because like dating, you don't fall in love right away, right? You have to go on 3, 4, 5 dates before you kind of really know if this is the person you want to open up to, if this is the one who has the skills that are going to support you. So making sure that you set that expectation from the get-go so that when you are starting to meet different coaches, you are finding that definitely if you're open to that, like the next one and the next one and the next one's going to be even more closer to the one you need.
Gotcha. So I think that's important. So I want to reiterate that. So, you're saying that give it 2 or 3, right, before you kind of make any decisions, right? Because, just like when you go on like a first date, sometimes it might not be the greatest first date ever, but maybe the second or the third one is better. So your advice is definitely give it a few before you make any kind of decisions on this might be the coach for me or not the coach for me.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent, good. I think that's practical advice.
Have you had to turn away clients or do you ever have to like break up with clients? That's what I would call it a little more, just because you have a little more intimate thing going on with the person you're working with. So like, what does that look like whenever you're like, do you just tell them you're done, you did it, great?
So on one of them, she would come to the sessions just kind of like iffy, and I could feel it from her.
Like she wasn't willing to put in the work
Or
on herself?
She was open to it, but maybe the tools that I had or the knowledge and wisdom that I was transmitting, she couldn't, like, it didn't land. Like, it was just kind of like still like, okay, this is what you're talking about.
It wasn't
right?
vibing for her.
Yeah.
Round peg in a square hole or whatever.
Yeah. And so I think on the 4th session, I was like, okay, you know the answer. So sit here and think about it. Do you want to continue this? And then, her answer was no. And so like, yeah, we just did a formal dissolution.
That's good that she said no. I feel like there's a lot of people that would feel like an immediate like ego hit of like, no, of course I'm great for this. Like, let's keep going.
Yeah, that's actually a good point
that's
too.
a little bit of insight she had in herself.
Yeah. And also to the space that I create, like I'm not here like, oh, you need to say yes, you need to continue this because you committed to with me. It's like, no, this is how your truth in the moment, and we're going to honor it, bring it out so that you are just going to keep flourishing because you honored your truth here, and that informs who you're becoming.
So in referencing truth and authenticity, and being like your truest self, I would like to know a little bit more about Helen. Where did Helen grow up? What was your first favorite teacher, and why were they effective for you?
So I grew up outside of LA in a little place called Roland Heights. Any Back to the Future fans? I live by the mall that Doc and Marty
nice.
Drove out of.
I had the Biff Tannen drop a minute ago.
Yeah, you
the
did.
Twin Pines Mall, which changes into the Lone Pines Mall. Yeah.
Cleverest joke in all of cinema.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Yeah, the Twin Pines sign is in the mall.
That's
That's
great.
funny. So you grew up near there.
Yeah, and there's a beautiful park over there for grounding. My teacher that had an impact on me was my 5th grade teacher. I think I was just I was a very timid girl, and just like I knew what I had to do to be the good student or like show up right. And so I never really thought of myself as like special or anything because I was just like doing the right things, right? But she had told me like, you're really smart. Like you should be in the GATE program, which is like the gifted and talented program that my school had. So that just always left an impact on me because I felt seen, I guess, in the popular terms that people say. Yeah. And so I thank Mrs. Thompson out there for seeing
Mrs. Thompson.
me.
Shout out to Miss Thompson. Thank you.
Greatest teacher of all time, Mrs. Thompson.
It's great that you got put in the accelerated program though, and then you stuck with it all the way through.
Yeah.
Yeah. In our school, it was 7th grade is when we got separated. I got put in all the smart kids class, and then very quickly it was like, okay, kid's great at English. He can write a sentence. He's great. Cannot do math to save his life. Let's reevaluate this decision. Let's keep him on the accelerated English and applied sciences, but math, let's bring him back to the regular level.
You crazy
Cannot
person.
handle this. Yeah.
I did not try. I did not do any of that. I knew of the accelerated classes, but I was a lucky enough human that like, at least during that time, I found that I could do the minimal amount of studying and still be okay, and that was fine with me.
Yeah.
So like I was relatively unmotivated in middle school and
D
high
for
school.
diploma, baby.
Hell yeah! Like I want to be done. So challenge for you. You've just encountered 8th grade me. I'm sorry, 9th grade me. And I'm wishy-washy about whether or not I want to go into some advanced classes. So like, what is your advice? Like, do you work with younger people at all?
I have not.
Okay.
No.
Well,
No one under like 18, say?
Yeah.
here's your first challenge. A 17-year-old me just walked into your office, and I'm like, I hate school. Make me better at school.
Wait, but do you want to be better at school?
Sure.
Okay. Do you want it for yourself?
My parents say I should be good at school.
So what do you want?
I want to make art.
Okay. And what kind of art are you making?
Anything. I like to draw, and I like to be on stage, and I like to talk to people.
Can we get you into art classes?
Yeah, they have one.
One? Only
There was one.
There was one.
There was one sometimes when there were enough people to have more than 5 people in the class. So yeah, I can request an art class. We went to a really weird school. This is hard to do this.
Well, I get the thing that I'm getting from like just even the basic tenets is that of what you're saying is that people when they come to you, they have to want it, right? That you cannot be I can't drag Chase
Hear
to
that
Helen
8th grade Chase?
kicking and screaming. Yeah, I can't
gotta want
drag
it.
Chase. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have to want to make the change, right? That's kind of the first step of anything that you do is that they have to be willing to meet you 50% of the way there.
Yeah, and that's why it's a relationship, right? Like I'm not looking to be like a football coach who tells you like this is the play and you go do this so that we're gonna make the team go. It's like it's a collaboration. It has to have movement in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that going back to your first favorite teacher? Was that a behavior that they modeled for you? Is that something you saw for them? 'Cause I want to know where like
Yeah.
your desire to do this came from. So you had a model. You had a model of a teacher that you really liked
Yeah.
a lot. So it's very likely that even unconsciously you've modeled her
Yeah.
behaviors. So like reflecting on that, was that something like she made you feel seen? So that's something that's very important to you to give to your clients.
Yeah.
So like, I'm curious how much like them have you ended up being with this little moment
now
of
I'm
reverence?
thinking back to the 5th grade classroom and like you guys are pointing out too, the inflection age that is, right? She did treat us like as more like little adults, and recognizing like the way we turn in our homeworks even, or I think grading each other's homeworks, things like that. So there was a like, show up and do your part in it. Yeah, that's cool.
That's fun.
Do you think just in general having role models like that, whether consciously or subconsciously, is important?
Oh, role models are very important because so I'm into trauma work as well, and a lot of what is in our subconscious or how we behave that may be unconscious is like all that stuff that's been role modeled to us from 0 to 7 years old. Yeah.
Right. Who are some of your role models? Just on, I mean, they don't have to be famous people. Just anybody in your personal life that is a role model, or
I have a friend named Ruth. She is living in Hawaii. She had moved there from Seattle.
yeah, okay, she's already my role model
Right.
too. If she's living in Hawaii.
Yeah.
I'd like to start
She's
all
got
my
it
role
all
models.
figured out. If I
There's a way to make every role model start with and lives in Hawaii.
Yes, on the Big Island.
Yeah.
And she left Microsoft as an engineer and
Wow.
is doing her own thing now.
that's got to be
Wow.
a really tough pull because working for
Yeah.
Microsoft is big time.
Yeah. So she's wonderful.
Why is she one of your role models?
She has a curiosity and like willingness to buck against the grain that I really like. Yeah, because then I think if we're not questioning, we don't really grow because then we're almost like accepting where we're at without thinking about more. And I guess I associate growth with more or evolving. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, who's one of yours?
One of my role models?
Yeah.
Ooh. Well, the easiest one for me right now is David Bowie. I just saw a documentary, Moon Age Daydream, by him.
Yeah.
Creative force, and just he was, like you were saying, was constantly someone that tried to make himself uncomfortable, and was trying to put himself in situations and artistic goals that were wildly different from the norm of the time, and just his own like personal battles of like, I want to do different art for me because I want to challenge me. And as he embraced that and grew in those directions, like audiences responded, people loved it. And yeah, just the amount of effort that actually went into him creating that presence and that level of performance and level of artistic creation was kind of amazing, and not something that I'd ever known about, and like how intrinsic and personal that was to him to be that in the world,
Yeah.
to be a voice of artistic creativity and not just a musician and not just a pop star, because I mean there are a lot of people that exist in that time and space that were like, I'm here for the show and I don't care about anything else, but like that dude was legitimately driven to like create more and better things just for his own purpose. And then
He intentionally trying to change the game.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like
I love that.
consciously going, I am going to make myself uncomfortable so I can find new things and so I can learn more about just being a human in the world. And having that new lens, because I didn't know all those things. There's lots of stuff in the documentary about his own words expressing like what he's trying to do and why he's trying to do things. And that was all very new to me, and that was very cool how it was presented. So that incredible inspiration of just like breaking out of the mold and being you and chasing your creative spirit wherever it takes you. So that's a huge inspiration for me. Actually, I have a tattoo of a David Bowie tattoo on my hand. So obviously it's something that I care about a great deal.
Yeah, you care about a very tremendous great deal. Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting question, I think. Does music play any part in what you do? I mean, just for me personally, music is they say it's one of the universal languages, but it's like music is that thing that it's like when you listen to a song that you love, it feels like it's cutting right straight into your soul.
Yes.
And it's like that really can kind of it cuts through all of the layers that we might put there as humans. Do you work with music at all in some of your coaching? And if so, how do you try to incorporate it?
I've used certain tones because there's like a love frequency or frequency that clears like anxiety, depression, and things like that. When I do the shamanic healing sessions, I definitely play the love frequencies on purpose so that people... Because just clearing is one part of the shamanic work, because you also have to put in light and love, for lack of a better
Can't just leave an empty vessel in the world. That can
Right.
get you in the same situation as you had before.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's that. And then personally, back to the self-care, music is a huge part of my life. Sometimes the meditation is just putting on a song and listening like with full presence, kind of like you said, like then it's almost like I'm touching my soul and my soul can like come up to the surface so that I'm closer to it and everything that is.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, music is so therapeutic for everybody that I have to imagine it's an integral part of really cutting through to the core of somebody, for sure. That's fascinating.
So my question was about sound healing.
Yeah.
You do a lot of sound healing work.
I don't
you
do it
involved a little
personally, but I've experienced it, and I know that it's likely to become part of my practice as I experience it more and then like read a person more and see. I do own a djembe drum that I got when I went to Cape Town in February, so
Awesome.
that's fun.
So have you seen a lot of people react to that like positively, as far as just like getting out of the standard headspace and becoming more receptive? And like what does that look like when someone sits down and you're like, okay, you're going to listen to a tone for 3 minutes and then you're going to feel better? And it's really hard to explain because it can like break the frequencies of their traditional thought patterns and get them in a different mode of thinking.
Yeah.
And it's very kind of fantastic to see that happen to somebody. So like, what have you had that experience with someone, and what was your reaction to that experience?
I haven't used that
No.
yet, so I like that. Even like 3 minutes, but I've done it with breathing for sure, because some people don't intentionally breathe, or like the length of their breathing, because generally we all could stand to breathe out longer and slower. So tip for everyone. And yeah, sound. I think that if I were or when I'm able to use that tip now, that Chase, it's like making sure the person feels like held in that space, because maybe they're going to freak out when they have to like sit still for 3 minutes and listen, but recognizing that whatever comes up for you is totally natural. You're not doing anything wrong. Like it's here just because you've never sat still, and this is what happens when you sit still.
It's kind of amazing how few people like make time in their day to like intentionally be still. There's so much demand in the world that we live in to like now everything has to happen now. Like if you're not doing something now, you're being lazy. Is that something you have to fight through when you meet people? Like that just conditioned busyness is what I'll call it. Like we have to be working or we're not productive and we have no value to existence. Like that's a very prevalent mindset in the world, at least in the Western world.
Yeah.
So do you like have to deprogram people sometimes?
Yes, I
guess
do
isn't
that a
true.
lot. And then it's what Shane brought up, burnout. That's why people are burnout, because of this conditioned busyness. Once we relax, actually so much more can come through, because you're giving your energy, your aura, the space, so that like what you want can actually come through. Because again, if all your muscles are flexed, nothing's coming in.
Right.
Absolutely.
You can't catch anything with a clenched fist, right? You have to.
Kimosabi.
Man, that was deep. Oh,
Kimosabi.
right? Yeah, but that's
You can only hit things. I'll add that.
Yeah, there we go. That's I feel like that's the title of a book right there. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely yeah, it's I feel like everybody could deal with being a little bit more receptive. I feel like in their kind of daily life, and also, I mean, perhaps this is an uninformed opinion, but I do feel like that's more of an American thing than it is in other cultures. I was recently reading an article about like kind of Japanese culture, and more specifically about how Americans very specifically are uncomfortable with long periods of silence. In Japan, there is actually a word for it, and I don't remember what it was, and even if I did, I wouldn't attempt to say it. But there is like a phenomenon in Japanese culture where it's like, especially with your close, intimate loved ones, there is like a recognized, enjoyable, like long period of silence.
Like comfortable silence.
That is the people who you are closest to are the people who you are fine having these like very long, unbroken silences with, and I have to imagine that also just translates out to just a more relaxed kind of feeling. And it's, that just, you don't really get that here in this country. Not that I'm that worldly, but I'm just saying, reading it, I was like, oh, man, we can certainly learn a thing or two from other cultures.
We do exist in a land of nervous talkers.
Yeah, it's true.
I meet them every other day at the bank while I'm waiting in line. Somebody else who's bored really wants to have a conversation. And I know it's just people's like need for connection and all that. Like back to Helen, what do you see people need the most as far as like when they reach out to you for your services? Like what's the most common thing that people are wanting and seeking?
Right now with the up-leveling, it's like understanding this. Oops, I did a tap again.
You're fine.
It's understanding the block. But usually in understanding that block, it's like to feel the block. And then usually it's some sort of emotion they didn't want to feel or they were keeping back.
When you say block, you mean like there is an internal block to a goal that they want.
Yeah.
And you have to help them get through too. Okay, I got you.
And then giving them I guess it's like the support, the nurture. Like, when you're feeling vulnerable and hurt, like whatever it is for you that you want in that moment, giving them that. Yeah, because then maybe they haven't ever given it to themselves, or they haven't had it modeled for them, or they don't have the close enough relationship in their life where they feel like they could get it. So then giving that experience to them.
Do you do a lot of in-person stuff as primarily your...
No, actually most of it's on Zoom, yeah.
How do you connect with someone well on Zoom?
I guess it's like recognizing that the connection... that I'm in it for the long run. Like I don't see it as transactional or temporary. And so I am there with the person, full presence in that hour, but then also recognizing that there's space for more. And the energy's there, even though like it lacks the physical closeness of meeting in real life. As long as both of us are willing to be present, it does have the same effect.
That's impressive. I have trouble with that on Zooms. Like my brain is just telling me I'm looking at a monitor, no matter what I'm doing or who I'm interacting with. So it's a real challenge to like get the feel for people. Do you, a lot of Zoom calls in your work currently?
Ton of Zoom calls, but very. I mean, Zoom calls are
40, I have 10 minutes.
40%.
I honestly have 10 minutes on every Zoom call I've ever been on.
Yeah.
Where I can be engaged and be focused.
Yeah.
And be like, yeah, we're on a Zoom. It's great. We're talking. And then my brain really just goes, you're not looking at anything anymore. I have no ability to access any other emotion from the person.
For me, what has definitely helped like my sanity and my kind of ability to process like all the Zoom meetings that are now just kind of an average part of our life, I actively and willingly refuse to have my camera on. I just won't do it.
Oh, there you go.
Oh.
I just find that this makes me sound self-centered. It's not. It's when my camera was on, I couldn't stop staring at myself. Where it was like, oh God, I look stupid. What am I doing with my hands? Why is my hair like that? Right? Or it's just like, why do I look stupid? Or it's like, if someone like is in a meeting, it's like, okay, we need to get this done by Tuesday. Then I'm like, why did I just nod so big like an idiot at that like stupid sentence? So just after about a month or two of Zoom meetings, I was like, this is done. I'm just turning my camera off. I'm not a part of this. I don't want to, and it's worked out, but it's like that for me has been the life balance of like, now again, in a session, like if you and I were to have a session, that's not applicable, right? Because I need to see your face, you need to see mine. But especially in a work setting, my advice would simply be if you don't work in an environment where you have to have your camera on, if that's not a rule, turn it off, right? Yeah. Just turn it off and get it off your screen so that you're not worried about yourself and just focus on the other people in the conversation.
That is a great idea. I'm usually in a situation where I'm asking other people to have their camera on. So then it's like, if I'm going to ask somebody else to do a thing, like I have to have me there too. Like I have to also be doing it. But yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Like I see myself out of the corner of the eye no matter what I'm doing. And I'm like,
I also
everybody's staring at that guy.
This is not to make this the Zoom tips podcast, but I don't know how to do it. But I have been told that there is a setting that you can click in Zoom where you still have your camera on, but you get it out of your field of view so that you never see your camera is on, but you never see it. Other people can, but you don't.
Is there a button to make your boss go away? Everybody would love that one.
I really enjoyed hearing that though, because it makes me think about like as we're talking, right? I'm not looking at myself. I see you guys.
Right.
So that
You
like,
connect
gives it the
differently.
same focus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because as you were sharing, Shane, I was like, oh shoot, I do that. I look at myself and I'm like, what?
It's a little tiny mirror on the corner of your screen, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
my God, my shirt. And then you're like, oh, I'm in a meeting. You suddenly have to focus.
Yeah.
It's not self-centered. It's just you just want to make sure that you're putting the best version of yourself forward. And it's like then you get in a rabbit hole and you're like, oh shit, I just missed 10% of what that person was saying because I was too busy. Like, is that a
Yes.
stain on my shirt? And,
Kathy is telling me about the reports, and I was focused on my tie, and I don't know what's going on anymore. And then you just have to nod and be like, yeah, great meeting. Good to see everybody. Yeah, I'm listening. I'm absolutely listening all the time.
Yeah. What activities do you like to do? Again, working with clients like you do, you probably have to have. You do, whether consciously or unconsciously, you take some of that in. What are the activities that you like to do for fun that you might find that are stress relieving or something like that? Do you ever go to those rooms where you like pay to you like wear a suit or whatever and then you just smash a bunch of glass shit? Like, do you ever find yourself doing that?
That exists? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're called like there's a couple of them in LA. They're called like break rooms or smash
They're
rooms
called
or
break
whatever.
rooms, yeah.
Well, okay, so if you've never been to a break room, what activities do you like to do that
We
you
can
find
skip
kind of
that one.
stress relieving, whether mentally or physically, where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
thank God,
Baths are good for
Baths
that.
are good,
Hiking. Anything in nature is always really helpful. I like to people watch those. So I like to
Ooh,
go
best
out
places
for
to
like a
people
good
watch.
dinner. Yeah, like
What are the best places
oh,
people
what are
watch
the
for
best
you?
places?
Venice Beach.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Malls.
Yes.
Even waiting in line, you can see lots of different people in those situations. But yeah, like a good dinner ambiance. I like that. I went to a Polish place called Solidarity in Santa Monica.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah. So that's interesting. Not a lot of people go eat Polish food as a hip place to eat. So it was neat because it was kind of like a barn style restaurant. So different ambiance.
Barn style?
Yeah. Like it was.
I don't know what that
wood,
means.
Like I felt like they did picnic tables, and then
Ah.
the building felt like a barn.
The barn aesthetic.
Yes,
The farm
thank
aesthetic.
you.
Rustic.
Yeah,
Rustic, they call
that is the actual word we were all looking for, is rustic.
Yeah.
That's the-
I like
Fancy
if you
farm.
frequent watching cooking shows like my wife and I do, rustic is the phrase that they use for when something is like really sloppy or a little burnt.
Oh.
They're like, oh, it's rustic. Like if you take a piece of bread and you cut it into a nice slice, that's professional. If you just tear a piece of bread, that's rustic. That's rustic. Yeah.
Yeah, it works. So I have a question for you, Helen. If you were not an up-level coach, and that was not an option for you to do,
Wow.
what would be your chosen path in life? Like, what would you be
Oh
doing?
my
What would keep
gosh.
yourself busy? What would make you happy?
This is such a beautiful question. I'd probably want to lean into something more with music. Yeah, just because it speaks to me so much.
Can you play an instrument of any kind or?
Yeah, I grew up playing piano. I learned
Nice.
guitar for a little bit.
Nice.
And then
Very good.
drums is easy to learn, right? I have my djembe, as I shared earlier. But yeah, maybe learning like the Tibetan singing bowls. I don't know if you guys have ever held one, but it like when you
seen
knock
them.
it, yeah, and you feel the resonance, kind of like we were talking about with the Sanskrit tantra words.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so amazing how it feels like in the.
You hold it
reverberations
like
of your
in
body.
both of your arms and
No, they're in the palm of your
Oh,
hands.
in the palm of your hand,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it is the tone I would describe. It's a very like heavy sound.
Right?
It's weird. It's like
yeah.
I don't know if the vibrations are moving slow enough or the actual tone is
Yeah.
like you do just like feel it in your whole body.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool.
Yeah. So, and then it's interesting because I recently learned that sound is really about the vibration that we feel. So apparently, I like good vibrations, right?
Yes.
that's what I was wondering what
you
you were
couldn't
getting
share
at.
good vibrations, you would make good vibrations.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was wondering about earlier when you were talking about sound therapy. I was wondering if it was more of like an actually like aural thing, like through the ears, where it's like you're mentally hearing the sounds, or if it was a physical thing, right? Like our sound guy Dave could tell you, like if you sit on a subwoofer that's playing a low frequency, you can feel it vibrating, and it's like, you know, if the woofer's big enough or the speaker's big enough, it could just vibrate your whole body, right? And there's probably some therapy or there's some sort of release in that as well, right? So that's interesting too. So it sounds like it's a little bit of both then, some of the sound therapy stuff that you do. Okay.
And then to take it even related to the flexed muscle, if you give it the right sound vibration, it can start to open up, right? Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
So you're starting a sound wave band.
Do you guys want it? You guys want it?
Yeah, let's see. Let's do a sound wave band. Hell yeah.
I'll play the shit out of a triangle.
Yeah, it's fair enough. I'll do kazoo. I'll do the high-end noises on kazoo.
So we have a very fascinating band forming with the sound bowl, a triangle, and a kazoo.
New art, right?
Yes, it is new art. I don't think there are very many sound bowl, triangle, kazoo bands in the world. And I think
there are now.
Here.
There's one.
There is one coming to you soon. Got to think of a good name.
Well,
and we're going to be sponsored by matcha tea and whiskey.
Matcha. There's a T in the word, but I don't think you say the T in the word.
My brain will not let me. Matcha? Matcha.
Yeah. Just skip right over that T like it's not there.
The T is going to like a flow into.
Matcha.
Yeah.
I did it.
And speaking of matcha tea, I think it's safe to say that we're kind of on our final sips here, so we'll start to wrap up. I have two final questions for you. Number one, I wanted to touch on something that you'd mentioned a little bit earlier. By and large, do you think that people in general are more yes people or more no people? Do more people say yes too much, or do more people say no too much?
Oh, this is such a fun question. Right? Yeah. So I think, I might get a little gender specific because I think what I noticed
everybody's different.
Yeah. So in my experience, let's do all the contextual preferences. Okay. I noticed that women tend to be more yes people.
Sure.
Because they'll look to the group or they'll look outside to see kind of what the consensus might want to be, and then maybe we could just say more feminine and. When people in their more feminine energy will be more yes people, and then people in their more masculine energy seem to be more no people because they look within and then like decide whether it's working for them or not.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating, and that I was reading an article a couple months ago or whatever, but there was a poll that was done by somebody, and it was like the poll was they polled men and women, and it was like if you could go back and tell your teenage self to do something or not do something, what would it be? And by and large, women said that I should go back and tell myself to not do something. And that men, by and large, said I would go back and tell my younger self to do something. So absolutely, like that makes a lot of sense that, cool. And then so final wrap-up question for me. What is, if you could, not to put you on the spot, but obviously there's probably one piece of advice that everybody needs to hear. And if there's one thing that you want our listeners to take away,
one little nugget of knowledge.
What would be the one nugget that it's like everybody I've met or 95% of people I met probably should start doing this in their life to get more relaxed or to unclench those muscles, as we keep saying. What's the one piece of advice that you'd like our listeners to take away?
That would be acceptance. Accept what is, accept where you are, accept who you are, accept what is in front of you. Because a lot of the suffering that we create for ourselves is because we want to change something about our situation, something about someone else in our life. Complaining is kind of rampant in our culture.
No way.
And that is because we're not accepting something. And so when you just sit in the acceptance and actually feel it and like know that you're accepting it, then you're actually catalyzing and making the space so that you can start changing something.
Wow.
That's wonderful. And speaking of acceptance, we now must accept that our second drink is done and it is time to wrap up the show. Thank you so much for being here, Helen. Where can people find you in the world if they want to follow you and get some wonderful insights about upleveling?
Right now, I am mostly active on Instagram, so my handle is Helen Coaches. And from there, you could also email me if you aren't on Instagram, so helen@helencoaches.com. So thanks, Chase and Shane. I really enjoyed our talk.
Thank you so much for coming. This was not only insightful, but it was incredibly enjoyable. Chase described you earlier as an enchanting person, and I can now second that opinion.
You are wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today on 2 Drink Maximum. We hope to see you next time, and bar's closed.
Cheers, everybody.
Now I gotta get back to my cave real soon, but I'm feeling kinda lost, just like a buffoon. My only GPS left are the stars in the sky. Well, little Betty's there way to text her on her iPhone. A mastodon was hanging around our cave just last night. 'Cause I'm a Stone Age man.